Hello. So today I thought, since I like doing the some of the automatic ideas that I did last week, I thought I'd do this again, but with some different books. So source material. So last week I did it with an issue of New National Geographics, which always have very well shot and stunning pictures, and the older ones have even older ones have those great vintage adverts and vintage illustrations as well. I thought I'd go for two books from a more recent haul that I got of from charity shops. So this one I got from a charity called Scope, and so this is a book of illustrated fairy stories, and you don't get ones that come out like this anymore with this high quality level of pictures. As you can see, I've already used something from it. So this book came out, and as you see, I've written a note of something that I want to do with that. So I usually do if I'm not going to be able to go back to using these pictures, making the collage instantly. I'll write notes as to where, and then sometimes I've literally come across these things months later. In fact, there's something that I've got in a book where I started it years ago. So, that's good actually, because I was kind of lamenting the choice between these soldiers and this image, and obviously I have a copy of the other page, some of the soldiers, so which is good. That has potential as well. That could be, I could do something literally just that, and put it in some kind of background of some kind of devastation might work well. It will show the reason for her sadness. The two frogs could be observers or people that are instructing her. Now this book came out 1978, so it's quite old. So something that could be done with that is, again, my initial instinct for these nice and lovely images is to contrast it with something bad. So that could, again, it could be some kind of fiery background, because we already have the coloration for that with this here. Could do something with the body of the butterfly, a skull or something over its head, but maybe a bit small for that. Or I could do something with the actual duckling, have something in its mouth, things around its feet that show maybe parts of skulls around its feet. In fact, it's a good job I'm visualizing this, because these are all ideas I could do. Again, something bad here. It shows a bit of my mindset. I will always go through these things with, or usually go through these things and change to something bad. Don't know what that says about me. Here, replace the duck with something. I'll have to find something for that. Nothing springs to mind, but that duck needs replacing. The hens make a good image as it is. And what I would do is I wouldn't extend this background up to here. I would actually just cut there, and I would have the chicken's head sticking out there of a white background, because I sometimes like to do stuff like that. So what else I can find here that appeals to me? This one is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this cuts across 2 pages. I can work around that, but there's always that line that I have to end up airbrushing out. Let's see. That can be, you can add more to that, have more of a background. So let's flip a bit further ahead, because there's a lot of pages in this. I mean, some of these pages I will end up cutting out and just getting rid of, so I can make more space. Because the ones I don't generally do the kind of collages where I use pieces of text, not massive bits like this. So let's see, there could be something that the Emperor there is observing. So if you have something there but still smoke coming out of it, let's see. Something to do with that background can change, or something that's on the rooftops here. Could be maybe fighter planes, bombs, so forth. Again, that's good. But that is actually pretty much a good image in itself. With the, you know, the cards make it weird and surreal enough. But you could add more. Always add more to it. You could actually have that woman from that page, from the previous page, coming up out of there. Again, the obvious thing, something needs to go in that box. He could be holding something in his hand other than that hat, or have something placed in that hand. More things could be added around there. Something in the doorway instead of that dog. Although that this picture looks weird enough as it is. Again, something else in the case. Add a different background to here. I'll obviously cover over the page number with something. So these are all good. And these are just things that, you know, are coming to me as I'm flipping through it. So who knows what I can come up with when I have actually time to think about it. This one is going to be slightly different because it's going to be mostly or almost totally photographic images. Now this one here is actually, maybe it's not as good for this kind of video, but you get a lot of good either background images or things that are you know, stuff that you add in to other images. So you can do something. I mean, this looks good as maybe something on its own, but that one will take a lot more thought. So maybe this one's not as good for this exercise. I mean, well, that is a good thing. You can always add stuff to the terracotta army, add things in that aren't really supposed to be in there. Makes it a bit Python-esque. Again, that you could do something with that, but you would have to be careful with something like this. Is even here you can see the background text. You would have to maybe mount this on top of something that's a darker background, so that text doesn't come through. So let's have another look. Just going through randomly here, see if there's anything. Pictures of the solar system are always good. These can always be, and things like this can always be added in. So if you've got a situation where you've got a window, it's always, if you want to replace what's in the window, a common thing to do with collage artists, space. Again, that is a good image to use. He could be put amongst plenty, basically, as a very common juxtaposition, and unfortunately still relevant enough for us to do that. Now this is it says it's computer production, but that kind of hazmat suit would initially make you think of some kind of biological. Oh, good, actually, this text here would actually go very well with that image there, measurements of wealth, and that in itself could actually be that on its own. So I shall have to remember that. So in fact, haven't got a pencil on me to write with. I shall try and remember that page. So again, that's a good image. This with the smelter. New cooling towers for power plants. So that's always good for environmental pieces. That again, where my kind of crazy mind works, juxtapose that with devastation. So I'll bookmark this. So yeah, so it is always fun to put in, to sometimes just go through, again, put something, cut out these bits, put something there, put something that shouldn't be there on the roads. But it is always fun to just go through, just flip through and see what things come to mind. As I've said in a previous video, that after years of doing this, I generally don't look at pictures the same way anymore. So I will analyse this. Sometimes the ideas are good, sometimes they're bad. And I think these ones always sometimes work a bit better than if I have a preconceived idea in my head. But for me, my personal way of working is to just flip through, is to go through and find myself an initial base image, you know, what one could almost call the canvas part of it, and then add stuff to it. Then, even if it's only just one thing, that's the majority of my collages come about that way, especially analog. It's really digital where it's planned out, but sometimes there are some analog ones that come that way, and sometimes there are ones that work perfectly well where I've literally just added one thing. Two that spring to mind is one that's called which is on a previous video, is the no more fast food one. That's all it needed was to add to that monkey, was adding to it were the hands with the sandwich. Another one called Yay Intervention, where I had a picture of a statue that looked like it was dancing in celebration, and I had a fighter jet flying across the sky. And just that one little touch, it completely changes the meaning of everything, or adds a meaning to it, or creates something new. So, see if you have get yourself some things like this. Sometimes it's actually fun to also do it with unfamiliar type of material. So, because I could just easily go through kind of stuff that I normally use, you know, the vintage pictures and the adverts and big good National Geographic type things, and I can just come up with lots of artwork that way. But sometimes it's harder, and it's good to stretch yourself, almost like create sketches and learn how to do new things. If you do stuff like, instead, like buy a day's newspaper or like a fashion magazine or something. The only trouble with that is stuff like that is when it comes to things like publishing, because obviously the more recently these things, the more likely someone's going to notice and sue. Something like this, it is someone else's copyrighted material. However, the chances of somebody actually suing me, finding it and suing me about it, are pretty small. So, well, that's a good picture there. That man there. So, yeah. So, see what you think. See what you can come up with, and just even almost as like thought experiments. Keep your mind sharp with these kind of things, even if you don't actually make them. So, I, as always, like, share, and subscribe, and support me on Patreon. All the details for all that are in the description. If you're a collage artist, please do send artwork for the YouTube magazine that I'm coming up with. Details for that in the description. The first issue, the deadline for that is the end of September, so there's still time to go for that. and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.